Brahman, the vast absolute reality, is and alone is. Originally, it is without difference, without the least trace of the ego. So then, how could any ego or difference actually ever come to be? The existence will not change its nature at any time. That which is otherwise is utterly non-existent. Consider the ego. What is it? It manifests as the assumption of individuality. But what is that? And it manifests not according to the reality of Brahman, but only according to itself, which, if truly and originally non-existent, means it does not actually manifest at all. Consider what you regard as I, the individual or ego. What is it? It is unreal, and how utterly unimportant it is. Just as the ego is unreal, all the forms that it assumes are likewise unreal, and how utterly unimportant. The desires born out of the ego, how petty they are, how unreal. The fears born out of the ego, how unwarranted, how unreal, how unimportant. Likewise is it with every other tendency. How utterly insignificant, how completely unreal. Seeing the unimportance of the ego I, and determining by self-inquiry the non-existence of an ego I, is good for the realization of Brahman, good for those who wish to abide in Brahman, Subramanya. And such attacks skandha, all the manifestations of the ego as well. What is good for the realization of Brahman is blissful. Whatever builds up the illusion of an ego is needless and merely a cause of suffering. Then again, inquire. What is it that is regarded as I? Is the ego I to be equated with the body? There is no ego inherent in the body, though the misidentification with the body is purely of the ego. Who is it that seems to take up a habitation in the body? If that one is not a body, but is merely conceived as an inhabitant of the body, then that one is intrinsically bodiless. What is that bodiless I? If bodiless, it must be birthless and deathless. But the ego is seen to appear and disappear, or so it seems. The birthless and deathless, the utterly formless and differenceless, is Brahman alone. We may say roughly that precisely where one thinks of an I is really the eyeless reality. The very nature of the one who dreams himself as if an individual is actually not an individual at all. If this is realized conclusively, then illusion, being illusory, vanishes utterly, without a trace. Again, consider the concerns of the ego, how small and insignificant they are. Consider the ego itself. How small. Why, if one seeks it, there's not even a speck of it to be found. That's small. The ego is only ignorance, never a reality. Brahman is always Brahman, and ever the reality. The ego is only ignorance, but ignorance for whom? Not for the real self. Brahman has no ignorance, but is ever only being, consciousness, bliss. The truth, the knowledge, the infinite. So then, who is ignorant? If we say the ignorance is of the ego, then this amounts to saying the ego produces itself out of non-existence. That is absurd. In accordance with the spiritual instruction of Sri Bhagavan, if you inquire to find out who is ignorant, ignorance and the one who is supposedly ignorant will vanish. What remains is the reality, absolute being, which is the supreme knowledge itself.